Good morning, everyone. We are going to get ready to go live. If we can have everybody fill in from the front seats here. Fill in from the front tables if you could, please. Jim, you can have whatever seat you want. Come on up. Don't let Jim sit up here alone, people. Just in case you didn't know, COVID is trying to work its way back into our society. We did not invite a whole lot of people here. We didn't want a whole lot of people packed up in this room. So, just so you know. Two minutes. Yeah, Air Force, baby. If everyone could put their phones on vibrate or silent, that'd be great. And check your reminders. Check your reminders. I better check mine while I'm talking. All right. Where we at, 52 seconds? All right, and the main thing was to have you here is to capture this information, not to have a big audience, just so you know. The goal is that we're going to be filming this. So if you stand up there, George, you're right in the camera angle there. So we wanted to make sure we capture this day, this event, this information, and we're going to be able to share that across the country, not across Arizona, but across the country as well. So we're starting in 19 seconds. Good morning, everyone. Hello and welcome to the Arizona Foundation Veteran Employment Forum 2022, presented by the Arizona Foundation and Sonoran Technology. The mission of the Arizona Foundation is to empower heroes in the community through entrepreneurship, employment, and education. I'm Ron Williams, president of the Arizona Foundation and United States Air Force Desert Storm era veteran. I'm honored to serve as master of ceremony for this important discussion today. This event is sponsored by Arizona Public Service, the Arizona Department of Veteran Services, American Legion Post 65, the City of Phoenix District 8, and Sonoran. The vision for this forum came from two of Arizona's most decorated military veterans, Arizona Foundation creator Alan A.P. Powell and Arizona Hall of Fame inductee Paul Smiley. The focus of this special session is to empower America's heroes through information from industry experts on the best vocational opportunities for military personnel currently in the state of Arizona. We're here, community and business leaders' perspective and ideas on how to identify, recruit, and retain veteran talent in Arizona. We'll look to gain clarity and understanding as to what workforce development really means and what specific industry are business leaders trying to develop. without reinventing the wheel, we'll also look to collectively identify and implement ways to recruit veterans during their transition from the military and establish a volunteer veterans employment advocacy that will collaborate with existing Arizona employment organizations and the local community. Today, we're in zip code 85040 in South Phoenix at the newly renovated American Legion Post 65. Thanks to the leadership of Arizona Foundation creator Alan A.P. Powell, some call this post the heartbeat of South Phoenix. Thank you to our post commander, Jarvis Reddick, and SAL Commander Dennis Prince and their team for hosting us today on this land. November is American Indian Heritage Month, and as land acknowledgments spread across our nation, we want to acknowledge that Arizona is home to 22 Native American tribes that represent more than 296,000 people. The Hohokam tribe are the first known settlers of the Phoenix area and made this their home for over 2,000 years. Out of respect for the original stewards of the land on which we now live, we make this land acknowledgement. Let's begin our program. Please stand for our national anthem and remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you, and let's bring up our SAL Commander to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. SAL Commander Dennis Prince.
Good morning. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, SLA Commander. All right. Now let's get to it. To officially open our program, we have a special guest speaker. Abe McCann is an Arizona native, father of 2 children, and has been married to his wife, Tamara, for over 20 years. Abe served in the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Division as a combat engineer, deploying in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2005. He has experience in workforce development, veteran employment programming, and has assisted many private businesses with the creation of veteran recruitment and retention programs. Abe worked with the Arizona Army National Guard as a soldier and family readiness program manager and continues to assist the entire military community. He is currently serving the city of Tempe as city's Veteran Services Coordinator. Please join me in welcoming Abe McCann.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to start by saying thank you for having me, and thank you for everything that you all are doing to support the military veteran community in Arizona. I'm only going to speak briefly with you this morning. My goal today is just to provide you an overview of the veteran workforce population here in Arizona, and then a couple of resources that may help you in your efforts to recruit, retain the veteran population. Next slide, please. All right, so some statistics about the population in Arizona here. We have a total of about 500,000, as you can see by this graph. And really the stats that stick out in this are that about half of them are retired. So I was discussing with a colleague earlier this morning, we do have an aging workforce when it comes to veterans in the community. And it's important now to start engaging those younger veterans to start replacing not only those workers, but some of that leadership in the community as well. Some other key points on here, you'll see that women only make up about 10% of the veteran population here in Arizona, with about 51,000 or so. And for more of this information, you can check out the VA's website. That's where I got it from. Next slide, please. All right, and then a little more in depth. So if you really want to get in depth about what the ages are of our veteran population, this graph does a really good job of illustrating that. And as you can see, the age 75 to 79 is really significant there. So that should tell you all you really kind of need to know. Again, re-emphasizing that point that we do have an aging workforce. Next slide. All right, so what about the military talent pool here in Arizona, right? We talk a lot about transitioning veterans. So every year, about 200,000 veterans, military personnel transition out. Locally, that looks like about 959 from Yuma down at the air base. 664 come out of Fort Huachuca. 902 from Davis-Monthan, and 610. Now the last stat, the Army National Guard and Air National Guard, was a little bit harder for me to get an accurate number. I did reach out to them, but according to their sources, we're looking at about 6,200 personnel. And why is that important? Those folks are not necessarily transitioning, but they are already here in the community. They're living, they're working, and they are available. Next slide, please. All right, and then, you know, when we were talking about Arizona, we're talking about veteran employment. We also talk about entrepreneurship. A lot of veterans and service members, when they get out, they like the idea of, you know, having a purpose and doing something, creating things. And entrepreneurship is a really valuable avenue for a lot of military members to pursue. And so this graph right here shows you that in Maricopa County, there are 635 businesses that are veteran-owned. And as you can see, the rest of the state, there's really not very many. And this is also something that the people in this room, through different programs and connections, can actually help increase these numbers. Next slide, please. Okay, one program I want to talk about today, and we're going to hear about it all day, I'm sure, because it's a great program, and it's really kind of hitting its stride now, and there's a lot of exciting changes coming, is SkillBridge. So the broad strokes of it are, any service member 180 days for separation could be approved to conduct some type of internship, apprenticeship, or some type of training program that hopefully leads to employment. Now for the employer, the benefit is that while these service members are there, they are not required to pay them salary, cover them with benefits, and it really gives the employer an opportunity to get a long-term interview with these people and make sure that they're a good fit. For the military member, it gives them an extended opportunity to adapt to a new workplace, to learn new skills, and also to translate what they've learned in the military and apply it to a potentially new career. Next slide, please. So if you're interested in this program, and whether you're a government agency, whether you're a private business, you're one of these entrepreneurs we're talking about, you can go to the DoD website. They have a lot of great tools on there for you. They have an actual toolkit for you that explains the process. There's video tutorials on there as well to answer a lot of the questions that your HR departments and your legal departments may have about the program. There is also templates on there to help you figure out your training program. How do you build the program that you want to sponsor? And then lastly, once you've successfully applied and been approved, you now have a website that lists your opportunity DoD-wide so that every service member can look at it, and if they're interested, apply. Next slide. So this slide, you know, just wanted to remind you, everybody, I mean, I think everybody in this room gets it, but these are some really good reasons why you want to do SkillBridge and why you want to engage with the military and veteran community. These are some of the many different character traits that make veterans and military members, as well as spouses, really great employees, and they can be assets to your company. And if you want to look at more of them, there's a really great article on Indeed.com. It's called 21 Reasons to Hire a Veteran. That's where I source a lot of this, these traits from. If you have the time, I encourage you to take a read. It talks about not only a lot of the technical training and the skills, but also a lot of soft skills and a lot of the different intangibles that this community could bring to your workplace. Next slide, please, sir. All right, I want to this quote. I was doing some research, and a lot of people talk about hiring veterans, and sometimes depending on who the person is, it can sometimes just come off, like a handout. And as a veteran and a military member, I don't like being given a handout. And so when people ask about this type of program and the things that we're doing, I say it's a hand up, and it's also repaying a debt. Now, veterans and military members will probably be the last persons to ever tell you, hey, you owe me anything, because it's not the way we roll. But in reality, these are the things that through service and sacrifice that we've provided to the country. And there is some time, with programs like this, there does come a time when we need to repay that. Whether we're veterans, whether we're just regular citizens, family members, etc., we need to repay that back. And President Obama had a great quote. I'm going to read it off the screen because I don't want to mess it up. So it's about how we treat our veterans every single day of the year. It's about making sure they have the care they need and the benefits that they've earned when they come home. It's about serving all of you as well as you've served the United States of America. And I think that really sums it up, what we're trying to do here, what a lot of the community is trying to do that work with veterans, and what you as an employer or somebody who has the ability to empower a veteran or a veteran family member through their workforce can do. Next slide. And last, for those of you that are watching this electronically or are going to log in later on and check it out, I do have some great resources listed. Different agencies, the Department of Veteran Services, the Arizona Commerce Authority. I've listed myself in there as well through the city of Tempe. We do provide services not only for the veteran community, but businesses in Tempe that would like assistance with the recruitment and retention of veterans. Next slide. Oh, that's it. I thought I had one more, but no, thank you, everybody. I am available for questions, so feel free to hit me up at a later time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abe McCann. Thank you so much. All right. Next, we're going to have our panel. This panel will be moderated by our very own Christine Gannon, who will introduce our panelists. Christine is the founder and CEO of Brightworks Consulting and a very good friend of the Arizona Foundation. She serves as a respected, exemplary leader in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. Leaning on her extensive cross-industry experience, she is an invested architect of change, providing exceptional value and notable return on investment for her clients. As CEO, Christine is known for her expertise in leadership, business process improvement, collaborative partnerships, and DE&I. Her research is focused on leadership, equity, inclusion, and ensuring the workplace is safe, educated, and equitable. As an industry leader, Brightworks designs innovative solutions cross-sector for the community and collective at large. Most recently, Christine received the prestigious 2021 Outstanding Women in Business Award from the Phoenix Business Journal. And yes. And 2020 as the top women achiever of Arizona by the Capital Times. She hosts a weekly podcast entitled Great Companies, Great Leaders. Please join me in welcoming our moderator, Christine Gannon.
Good morning, everyone. I need to move this down. So, organizations have long said that they are veteran friendly and they want to hire veterans, but the actual process that goes behind that is a little difficult sometimes, and it's challenging without the right tools and resources. So it's much different when you put policies and practices in place that support veterans, not only to recruit and attract them, but also keep them engaged in the workforce. And today, we're going to hear from experts who have put their tagline that they're veteran friendly in place, that they put the policies and practices in place to retain their veterans. So we're going to hear about best practices, we're going to hear their recommendations, and so without further ado, please welcome our panel. Paul Smiley, Cintra Hoffman, Lindy, George, and Patrick. Welcome. So I'm going to take a minute to read each of their bios, which are abbreviated, to you, so you have some knowledge and history related to who they are and why they're sitting on the panel. You guys look great. Oh my goodness, what a great panel. So let's start with Paul. Paul Smiley is the founder and president of Sonoran Technology and Professional Services located in Goodyear, Arizona. Sonoran is recognized as one of the most successful and fast-growing veteran-owned businesses in the United States, providing professional service support to the U.S. Air Force, Navy, Army, General Service Administration, and other federal agencies. In 2016, Mr. Smiley was honored as a U.S. Small Business Administration Small Business Person of the Year in Arizona, and in 2017, he was selected and honored by the Phoenix Business Journal as one of the 25 most admired leaders. In 2019, his company, Sonoran Technology, was the SBA's National 8A Graduate of the Year. Most recently, in October 2021, he was inducted into the Arizona Veterans Hall of Fame in honor of his military service, business philanthropy, and community leadership. Mr. Smiley is a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel with over 1,900 flying hours in the E-3 AWACS aircraft. He is a combat veteran of Operation Desert Storm. He served twice as a squadron commander, deputy group commander, Pentagon Action Officer for the Joint Chief of Staff. Lieutenant Colonel Smiley is a graduate and former instructor at the Air Force's prestigious Fighter Weapons School. During his 25 years of service, Lieutenant Colonel Smiley was awarded multiple medals and citations. Please welcome Paul Smiley. Next, we have Patrick Fitzhugh, who's the Director and Regional Site Manager for USAA. Patrick is an Air Force veteran and served as a Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape, or SEER, instructor from 2003 to 2007, and as the Regional Site Director for USAA's North Phoenix office. With more than 4,000 employees in the greater Phoenix metro area, he is responsible for community relations, corporate responsibility, business continuity, and executive strategy. Patrick is very proud to serve as board chair for USO Arizona as the force behind the forces. Please welcome Patrick. Cintra Hoffman, welcome. Cintra is the president and CEO for Westmark, an economic development and policy organization serving 1.8 million residents in the West Valley of Metro Phoenix. Her expertise includes 23 years of public, private, and nonprofit work. Prior to Westmark, she served as a government relations director and deputy city manager for the city of Surprise and the assistant division director for ADOT. She currently serves on several community and education boards. She was recognized by the Phoenix Business Journal as one of the 25 most outstanding women in business in 2022. Previously, Arizona Business Magazine recognized her as one of the most influential women. In 2019, she was recognized by Estrella Mountain Community College as their education hero and also received BMO Bank's Women Who Lead Award. She holds a bachelor's degree in business administration and a master's degree in public administration. Welcome. Next, we have Lindy Smith, who is the president and co-founder of the Arizona Defense and Industry Coalition. AZDIC is a coalition of regional organizations founded by Senator McCain and is serving as a united voice for Arizona's defense and industry communities. AZDIC partners with local organizations and Congress to address key issues facing the defense community, such as staffing shortages within essential fields, supply chain congestion that limits materials for weapons development, and modernization struggles within the overall defense infrastructure. Please welcome Lindy. We also have another panelist with us this morning, George Flynn.
Hi, good morning. So I didn't get an opportunity to submit my bio, so I'll do Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? There we go. All right. Good morning. I didn't get a chance to submit my bio, so I'll give you a quick rundown of who I am. My name is George McNeely. I am the Chief HR Officer for the state of Arizona for the Department of Administration. My team supports about 36,000 employees with enterprise services, HR services, and over 200 agencies, boards, and commissions. 90 of those directly we support pretty much every day. So my background, surprisingly, I grew up about a mile away from here. So thank you very much to Post 65. Make sure I get it right now. Been here all my life, but thank you for Post 65 for having us at this beautiful venue. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I'm a veterans advocate, and I'm very passionate about what we're doing here today.
Thank you. Thank you, George. Okay, let's get started. Paul, I'm going to start with you. So as a federal contractor and a service-disabled veteran-owned small business owner who works primarily with Department of Defense at several military bases throughout the United States, what would you say are the top benefits of hiring veterans?
Okay, thank you. Marlon, yes, I am. Okay. So I would say the top three are culture. And as a business owner, we focus a lot on skill sets, but for me, in my experience, culture is key. In bringing on people who can support your culture, identify with your culture, and then take it to the next level, that's important. I think veterans, I spent 25 years on active duty, had a couple of commands, and I think veterans in our company really support the Sonoran culture. They come to work on time, they're respectful, they don't do any type of harassment or discrimination, and that's, for me, the starting point. Every CEO, every business owner should have a great respect and a great priority on establishing a culture that is friendly, fair, and equitable throughout their business development processes. And that's what we do. So we look for culture first, and then we hire for talent second. So part of that culture is really attitude, because I can't train attitude, and that's a part of that. I would like to say this because I think it's very important for the business owners. Not every veteran is going to be a perfect fit for your company. They won't fit. And the caution is, don't hire one veteran and goes, well, I tried to hire a veteran, they didn't work out, so let me kind of put a peanut butter spread across the board that veterans aren't good for my company. Not every veteran is going to be a perfect fit. We're about 75% veterans in our company because of what we do. We train pilots, we train air crews, we do cybersecurity, and all of our employees are at some military installation. So not only being part of the Sonoran culture is important, it's also being part of that squadron or that group or that wing, because that commander, he or she has their culture too. So we have to really dive in and make sure we're part of the culture of our customer, which is the federal government and particularly DOD. The second part is experience. And I've been known for saying, you cannot fast forward experience. So here's a person in my company, is a program manager at Luke Air Force Base. And the requirement says you must have 15 years of flight line experience. 2 years doesn't work. I need 15 years or more. And I just can't get that from ASU or U of A or any community college. I need that veteran who brings that skill set, bring that skill set, and they bring, the most important thing we have is a personal security clearance. We deal in the government, security clearance is important. And then finally, the leadership part. Senior NCOs, officers, for the most part, bring a great skill set with leadership. And leadership is a process. It comes from experience, which also comes from failure. But that leader also knows how to solve problems. And when they do that, those three things, the culture, adaptability, the experience, the security clearance, and then that leadership ability, that's what we need, and that's what makes our company successful.
Thank you, Paul. Lindy, we're going to stay in the defense workforce sector for a moment. Can you tell us a little bit about the current defense workforce environment and why veterans would be a good fit for these open positions?
Sure thing. Can you guys hear me okay? What if I just talk really loud? Is that fair? Are we good with this? Oh, Well, hi, everyone. Well, thanks for bearing with me. As far as the defense landscape goes, I think to no surprise, right, every industry is facing a massive workforce shortage at the moment, but specifically the aerospace and defense industry is facing, quite frankly, a crisis, right? There's 50,000 open positions currently in aerospace and defense alone. And as we all know, right, when we're seeing a shortage in that kind of industry, it's not only affecting, you know, our national security, but it's also the assets that we're putting in the hands of our U.S. warfighters that are defending our freedoms abroad and at home, right? And so right now, you might be saying, okay, well, I know a ton of veterans looking for work. You know, why wouldn't they want to go work for a defense contractor? Unfortunately, at the moment, we're having a major skills gap. Over 70% of HR officials admit that there's a disconnect between the skills that people are coming to their office with and the skill sets that they actually need for employment. So what that's telling us, right, is that we need some training. And it's not just veterans, but it's the workforce across the board. But we specifically see a major benefit in looking at veterans as and potential employees, not only because of their skill sets and their leadership skills, but also because right now they're facing their own crisis. Veterans are 33% underemployed, right? Which means they are currently in a position that they are overqualified for. A lot of this happens because people are rushing out of the military. They're looking for a job and a paycheck right away. They don't have time to go to a 4-year degree if they don't already have one. And so they're getting something that is quick rather than maybe on the best career pipeline for themselves. And so what we're looking to do is actually to develop a program in which we can help upskill veterans into the defense workforce through an apprenticeship program with defense contractors within our organization. Defense contractors historically have not been big fans of apprenticeships. There's a lot of security concerns, whether or not they're going to go to a competitor. And it's just the reality of the day and age now that we're more in dire need of employment than we are in fear of the consequences of an apprenticeship program. And so I've thankfully gotten a lot of buy-in from the organizations across our board. And so we will be starting up this program at the beginning of the year. So encourage anyone that's interested or anyone who knows veterans who are looking to seek employment within the defense industry to let me know. Because we see great value not only in the leadership skills they provide, but the mission that they have, right, which is very similar to what we look to do in the defense industry.
Awesome. Thank you, Lindy. Patrick, I'm going to come your way next. So for those who don't know, USAA is a Fortune 500 company that was started by 25 U.S. Army officers in 1922. Today, USAA ranks nationally at number 55 as one of the 100 best companies to work for and the world's most admired companies. I think it's fair to say that one of the many reasons that USAA's for USAA's longevity, growth, and success is because of your workforce. Can you tell us a little bit about the workforce at USAA and specifically the veterans who work there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's been key for us is we've become a veteran-ready organization versus veteran-friendly. And if you're in this workforce space, you're probably already hearing a lot about that and what it means to be veteran-ready, because hiring them is one thing, but can we retain that talent? And I just want to point out what we've been able to identify and have a really good impact in the city of San Antonio is workforce is not just a single topic issue. It's a community issue. So I'll talk a little bit about our employees and what they do, but I want to just make sure that employers and public, private, nonprofit sector all know that we have to figure out somehow to bring all these organizations, coalitions together so we have a really clear understanding of the battlefield of the Phoenix or Arizona community and what resources are really out there. So I'm going to just throw this out there publicly so I commit to it for myself. My goal is sometime in 2023 to establish a monthly forum for all these organizations to come together, including our military. If you look around the room right now, we're missing some key components. There's no one in uniform in here. And that's the case at most of these workforce conversations. So we have to bring them in and make them part of the solution as well. So let me talk about my employees and how we make sure that we're veteran ready. One of the things that we've done is just on the intake process, we know veterans have trouble with their resumes, right? One, we got to stop feeding them old information that you have to fit your 20-year career onto a one-page resume, right? Not possible, doesn't work. So you need to make sure that you're educating the workforce. So we're going out and where the veterans are. So one, make sure you know where they're at, and you're not going to know that unless you're educating yourself on the veteran workforce. So when they come in, you go on our website right now. We have a really cool program through, it's called VetsLine. I can enter in all of my military information, experience, background, and it'll actually not just show me, hey, these are some jobs that you could do. It shows you these are current openings within USAA that you would be good to apply for, right?
Wow.
So that's the first one, just helping them make that process a little bit better and making sure that they're educated on how to get into the corporate world. And one thing I do want to, Paul mentioned it earlier, is not all veterans are the same, right? And you need to make sure that we are not underemploying and making sure that job placement is critical. So make sure you have the mechanisms inside your organization that if they come in and that job is not a good job fit, make sure that you have a way to get them into the right position. Okay, and that's how you're going to retain them. That's how you're going to keep them there. Volunteerism, we have a actively engaged community here. Our military population for our organization right now is at 23%, which is pretty substantial compared to most other organizations. We activate our employees through the resource groups that we have. We worked with the past Arizona Coalition for Veteran Careers in establishing an employee resource book, a playbook you can find online. So one is just making sure you have the systems in place, but also educating yourself. And then when it comes to talent development, I'm really excited about this one. And this is a result of private, public, nonprofit communities all coming together. We've piloted before. We have a program called VetFit, Veterans for IT, and it's going to be approved through the Department of Labor as an approved program, a apprenticeship program, where we're going to transition veterans out of the military, teach them the IT skills, because we have the skill gaps that we need today, and then we will be able to hire them and place them into a job. Okay, so have that ability within your organization to find where those needs are, and if you don't have those jobs within your organization, the relationships here are very important. So if I can't get you that job, can I point you towards Abe because it's not a good job fit for what we have available right now? Or can I connect you with that list of 1,000 organizations we saw? If I listed the nonprofits on there as well, it would probably be a lot longer. So I'm going to stop with that because I could keep talking forever on this issue. But what I would say is you have to educate yourself, make sure you have the systems in place within your organization, and you have to be plugged into the community to know realistically what are the current needs and what are the current resources.
Thank you. Really excited about that forum. Sounds valuable. So we know that real change happens at the local community level, and so Sintra, I'm going to come your way and talk about Westmark. So Westmark has 3 focus areas, major focus areas, around promoting the West Valley, enhancing economic development, and increasing member value. We also know that Westmark is keenly focused on workforce development. What specific workforce industry areas is Westmark focused on, and why do you feel veterans are a good fit for these industry areas?
Thanks, Christine. You guys hearing me? Oh, hello? Okay, I think it eventually starts. Okay, great. It has to warm up like me in the morning. Is an economic development focused policy organization. Let me try this one. That serves the West Valley community, and the West Valley is defined as all of the cities and unincorporated areas west of I-17. So it's a pretty big area, 3,000 square miles and 1.8 million residents. Our goal is really to keep attracting jobs to the West Valley and companies to our area, because when you have 1.8 million residents, you need some jobs. And one of the benefits that we have, quite frankly, is having Luke Air Force Base right in our backyard. And that's a talent pool that we really want to draw from and retain them in our community. They have the right skill sets, they have the right work ethic, they show up on time, they're motivated, and they're trained, they're already trained and skilled. And so these are the people that we want to retain in our community, and grow that. So the targeted areas that we are focused on, we have a 5-year workforce development strategy that we are targeting to grow IT. So I loved what you said about that. That's great to identify those folks. Aerospace and engineering, logistics, advanced manufacturing, advanced business services, and healthcare being one of the leading industries in our nation and clearly in the West Valley. And so these are areas that if you look at what's happening at a base, and you guys all know this, right? Every industry that I've just described that we're targeting, you have a workforce at Luke Air Force Base or any of the bases around the state that are in those lanes. And eventually they're going to either get ready to retire or they're going to get ready to transition into that next career. So again, I find that when I speak with people, they often think, oh man, I'm going to have to leave the state or I'm going to have to go back, where I was from or whatever. And here we are, like Lindy said, we've got this tremendous gap that we're trying to fill. And so there's a disconnect in how we get to the people that are actually looking for these jobs. We want to help them with their resume. We know that it's a daunting task. And so we want to help them through that process and connect them directly with employers. And one of the things that we talked about from an employer perspective is, it's not a peanut butter approach. It's not, okay, we'll fill anyone there because they need a job. It's really bringing them on board and providing that mentorship and that connection. When the military member is in the service and they move to a new assignment, they have a sponsor. And that sponsor navigates them through, getting there, where the housing is, the best areas to live, the schools for their kids, employment opportunities for their spouses, and so on. And so that's really lacking when we say that we want to be veteran friendly and we want to hire vets. We don't really always know as companies what else is needed. And I think that that's an area that we would also like to continue filling that information and getting the information to the companies that we work with. Because clearly we do have a skills gap going on right now. We do have a workforce shortage. And our goal is to work with our industry partners in those industries that I mentioned, and then our education partners and say, okay, what is needed? So again, you have a lot of folks that we're trying to train up within the community, yet you have the military community that already has these skills, and we want to put them to work and we want to retain them here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. George, we're going to come your way next. Can you talk to us a little bit about what's happening at the state level related to veteran hiring and any programs that are in place?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Christine. So the easiest way to kind of explain what's going on at the state is to kind of look back. So in February of this year, Governor Ducey announced the Veterans Hiring Initiative through the state, and we tagged it AZ Hires Vets. A lot of motivation and a lot of excitement about it, but there's a lot of work to do, right? And so actually the work on that started about a year earlier, and we really started as a leadership team, an initiative team, looking at our data. For one, we didn't have a very good grasp on our data. We understood there's a lot of opportunities to understand what our veterans workforce looks like, who they are, what do they want. We employ about 3,200 veterans at the state. That equals about 8.5% of our total workforce. So a sizable amount, but we realize that we definitely can do better, and we're leaving good employees on the table. We're not bringing everybody on that we could. We did set a major goal of reaching 15% of our total workforce as veterans by 2025, which is a very aggressive goal. Are we going to get there? We're going to do our best to get there, right? But we really understand that it's going to take some considerable change in the way we do business. So over the past 2 years, and mostly in earnest since February, we've held numerous in-person and virtual hiring events to kind of focus on attracting and then recruiting and hiring veteran candidates, their families and their spouses as well, their dependents, opening it up because that's just as important. You can't get a job and not bring your family if you're able to travel with them. You need to employ them and show them some opportunity there. So we're including that in everything that we do. We've seen some great success at some of our hiring events, and some of them have been kind of light. We realize that different communities need different approaches. Definitely the rural communities, there's a different type of marketing to get the candidates to the events. We were fortunate we had great responses in Tucson. We went up to Flagstaff, had a smaller event, but it was a great event. And we had a very diverse group, everyone from 20-year veterans to the person who maybe served a 4-year enlistment to maybe your older veteran community who's just trying to return to work or looking for some opportunities to serve. And that's one thing, key thing that we're trying to do at the state is, and some of the conversations I had this morning, it's just not about that. We talked about flipping burgers. Veterans can do more than flip burgers, right? We can come and make an impact. We have impact players, and they may start at a lower level position with the state of Arizona, but they also can serve on boards, commissions, agencies. There's over 1,800 positions on boards and commissions, and many of them are vacant right now that can be filled by veterans. There's tons of opportunities for executive directors at those agencies, and many of them are veterans. And I'm proud to say, if we look at even our highest levels of our HR community, is about 40% veterans who have served over 20 years. So it's a great thing to see us represented in that community as well. So that was our first phase, the attracting and hiring. And I'll be quite honest, we were losing an average of 19 veterans per month from our workforce, month in, month out for 24 months. It's just nonstop. We're just losing them. It's a fighting, we're losing battle. Fortunately, over the past 5 months, we've been able to reverse that. We've had positive net gains over the past 5 months. 1 month, there was only one veteran that we were positive gain, but guess what? That's still a victory. It impacted that veteran's life, right? So we're tracking our data, understanding that we've got a long road ahead of us, tons of challenges, and we're learning along the way. Our next phase going into it is about retention. And it doesn't matter how many we hire, if we're not retaining them, if we can't be competitive with wages, with professional development, we look at our feedback. We have engagement surveys and trying to understand why veterans leave. Veterans leave because of crappy leaders, right? And I'm sorry for speaking like it, but that happens sometimes, right? And then it happens not just veterans, but all employees. So veterans retention issues and many times are regular, just non-veteran retention issues. It's organizational issues. You have to be competitive. You have to offer training and ability to maybe a remote work. We have over 1,700 different types of jobs with the state of Arizona. And at any given time, we have about 800 of those are posted online and available for applications. And about 20% of those are remote work possibilities. Not everybody wants to move to Maricopa County, believe it or not. Some people like it and they want to stay down by Fort Huachuca. They want to stay up north. But we have to have be competitive up there, give them the opportunity and leverage technology to make sure that they can do that job and benefit the state, benefit their families, and continue to serve.
Thank you. You raised some really important points that are a consistent theme in terms of ensuring from an employer perspective the infrastructure's in place to support veterans once they're in your organization. It is a lift to attract and retain, but once you have them, ensuring that those policies and practices are in place on the flip side. So, Paul, I'm going to come back your way if we still have some more time. Abe talked a little bit about SkillBridge this morning, thank you, Abe, and shared with us about that program. I know that Sonoran Technology has used that program. How has it worked for you?
Very successful. And by the way, kudos to the city of Tempe for having a director
Yes.
of veteran services. I'm not sure how many cities have that, but that is worth a round of applause. Great for the city of Tempe. Yeah. I was talking to the Mayor Georgia Lord, who's passed away, about transition, and the Transition Assistance Program is what the Air Force calls it. I think the Army calls it ACAP. And I took Mayor Lord out to Luke Air Force Base to actually sit into a transition program, and she was quite surprised and happy because she was a military spouse for 30 years. Her husband, Ron Lord, was in the Air Force. And she relayed to me that when you leave the confines and the friendly atmosphere of Luke Air Force Base and go to the civilian community, it can be a culture shock. And I remember as a brand new retiree, I was talking to some folks in the West Valley at the company, and the guy said, "What's up, dude?" I goes, "Are you talking to me?" And I said, "Okay." I'm in a new world now. But that transition is important. So when SkillBridge came along, I was surprised at how many people didn't know about the program. And so at the time we used it, my HR manager, who was also a vice president, was retiring. He had 25 years in the Air Force and was retiring, and he's a key figure for recruiting. Because although we train pilots how to fly and do cybersecurity, when I go home at night, I realize I'm in the people business. And all of you in the people business as well, regardless of what you do. And so we talked to the SkillBridge folks, we registered, and we were so fortunate to get a young man. He was a senior master sergeant, Jaime Acevedo, who was in the Arizona National Guard. and I got him to work for us as a skill bridge transition. And had I had to pay him for 6 months, it would have been a lot of money, a lot of money. But he was the right fit talent, and he and Pete got a chance to sit together and talk about Sonoran, what our culture is, what our values is. It was just, basically AAA ball for our company for 6 months, and he can learn how to play the position, and it was been a smooth transition. And for Sonoran, recruiting right fit talent is key. So if you apply it to any small business, and I thought what was interesting is that it didn't have to happen for Sonoran, it could have happened for anybody. Walmart, anybody, who's an employer could have done that. And I give good kudos also to my good friend Patrick down there, because USA has done a fantastic job doing this. And I'm not promoting USA, but I'll tell you this, I've been with them for 40 years. And the reason I stay with them is because of the people they hire. That's it. It's about that culture. It's about the right fit talent. And so for us, Skill Bridges, it's been fantastic. And again, Abe, thanks for doing that. I highly encourage you to go to the website and learn more about it. It's not an easy process, but it is worth the value in doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Patrick, I'm going to come your way related to recruiting. So USA has a very robust recruiting program. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh man, where to begin? I mean, part of it is nice because we have some MOUs with the Department of Defense. We are a Department of Defense contractor, and also being a financial organization, our regulations are just insane for what we can and can't do. But for recruitment, one, are you showing up where the military are? So again, meeting in the middle. We have a military affairs organization that we put dollars into military activations. We put it into their recognition events, holiday parties, anything like that that's around the military culture or military family. We support a lot of military family days through our military affairs organization. So, I know not every organization is going to have the resources to stand up their own military affairs team, but boots on the ground you'll never find a better substitute. So if there's a specific skill set that you need, find where those military members are, what base are they at, where are they located, if not in Arizona, and how do you show up there, invest time and resources into them as a recruiting team, and get them to consider coming to Arizona, San Antonio, or some of these other places. So I just want to hit on a couple other quick facts. We also participate our recruiting team with an organization. It's under the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and it's part of the SkillBridge program. It's not different. It's not separate. And that's the Hiring Our Heroes program. Fantastic program, similar to the SkillBridge, except there's mentorship, there's check-ins, there's a cohort that's put together. And this last year, they've placed about 1,000 participants, and with a 90% hire rate with the organizations that they are going through this internship with, this paid internship. Two great things on this. One, they've now removed the geographic limitation, so they will now pay for a 6-month TDY essentially for this active duty military person. And two, they now have a program for military spouses. So we go after military spouses extremely aggressively in these populated areas because we know we can move with them as long as they're staying in the United States, right? And if we get the military spouse, who, by the way, their unemployment rate still averages between 20 to 24%. If we can get them, that family will stay with USAA. And a lot of times, we get the active duty member to come work for us after the spouse.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Lindy, I'm going to come your way. So earlier we talked about all the open positions within the defense workforce environment. What are some thoughts that you might have on how we close those gaps? What are some programs that might be available?
For sure. So one thing that we're looking at right now, and kind of speaking of our recruitment process, and I'll backtrack a little bit and say that the other hat that I wear is I head up government relations for a defense contractor called Apprentice SES. We do cybersecurity within DoD today. And part of what we did when we first started up about 3 years ago is my CEO put a major priority on hiring veterans. What we found is that kind of at the onset, right, when getting a veteran resume, us as managers, we weren't quite sure how to interpret it, right? We didn't quite know where the skills align. And what my CEO had the intelligence to do was to tell us, no matter what the resume looks up, you have to call that person. If it's a veteran, you're calling them. What that did was allowed us as leaders to evaluate them on a personal level to it really broke down that gap that there is between the resume and the employer. What we're doing through the Hero Careers program that's underneath the Arizona Defense and Industry Coalition is to create a very similar program to what the federal government does today with veteran preference, right? Which means if a veteran is applying within the federal government, they get priority in preferred status with regards to interviews and selection. We look to do that same program within ACDIC so that members of our organization, if we send them a resume, they will do the same thing that our CEO recommended to us when we were first starting up, and they'll pick up the phone and at least give them a screening interview. Again, breaking down that resume barriers that we're not stopping applications. The second thing that we're looking to do is education at the bases. So right now, again, as I mentioned before, there's kind of a rush out of the military to secure a job, right? And it's not always in the best career path for that military personnel. What we are looking to do and what we work with our partners at the UF50 as well as the Southern Arizona Defense Alliance is we've talked to the bases in Southern Arizona about having defense contractors come out to the bases and talk to military personnel about what it means to pursue defense, right? Because right now, 60% of veteran job applicants, or I should say 60% of people looking to apply for jobs in defense that are veterans don't actually apply for the job because they don't think their skill set requirements. We firmly believe that is not the case, that there's a misunderstanding between industry, right, and that military personnel. So what we want to do is actually go down to the base with people like Paul, with people like Boeing and Honeywell, and start talking to them about, hey, we want to hire you. Don't be afraid to go apply. Please give us a call. And then the third is the apprenticeship program, which, again, a large need out there is just the right skill set. And unfortunately, academia has just not caught up to the defense industry or technology industry. That's why programs like what you're doing are so crucial. And getting industry to understand why they need to actually do it is so crucial because there's not really an area for us to make up that skills gap through a 4-year degree, right? The industry does not have the time to wait that long. And so by having apprenticeship programs, by having certification training, we can close that gap in a much shorter amount of time. So we highly recommend programs like that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I don't know.
George, I'll come your way. Congrats on changing the trajectory of veterans leaving and moving that in the right direction. Can you talk a little bit about lessons learned from that program and how you made some adjustments for the success?
Yeah, so that's a great question, actually, and it's a continual process with the lessons learned. Each event, each time we meet, we're learning more. Each time we reach out to the community, the veterans community, we learn more. I think some of the key things as far as the state goes, with such a large organization that can tend to be siloed, the communication doesn't always flow where it needs to. It's just like in the military with different units. You know, are we communicating it the best way we can? I can tell you that I think one of the most valuable things that we've seen that helped change the trajectory of our veterans employment is, and I see some of the representatives here from DES for the DVOPS and Leavers program off the JVSG, the Jobs for Veterans State Grant. Important program. It's the ability to give that warm handshake to a veteran. And you talked about breaking down resume barriers. That's exactly what it is. We've made connections within our own organization, so we're now speaking the same language. Derwin over there can pick up the phone, call me and say, hey, George, I've got this veteran. He's coming out. He's interested. What can we do? So then we can then disseminate it to the recruiting community. So it's opening doors. No more gatekeepers, right? There's an initiative. There's a goal. There's KPIs that we're trying to hold ourselves accountable to. So break down those barriers so we can get those jobs. A lot of that goes with our hiring policies. If you've ever tried, I worked in the private sector for 20 years before I went to the state. I was kind of oddball. I decided to go to the state after working in the private sector, right? And just that hiring process alone is enough to say, no way, I'm going to stay in the private sector. You know, it took 4 to 6 weeks. I see a head shaking,
Yeah.
personal experience here. So ADOT, I started with ADOT, so I know. So, you know, doing things, taking a look at our policies, our preference point policies. It's archaic. How can we write it, improve it to accomplish our goals, not only for veterans, but also for their families, for their dependents, their spouses, that type of thing. So it takes getting out of I hate the term thinking out of the box, but certainly you need to be creative. You need to say, you know what's our objective and how we're going to get there. We can't keep doing things the same way.
Right.
So that's kind of the lessons learned. Um, Sometimes it can get very unwieldy. A lot of excitement, a lot of enthusiasm, but it has to be sustained, consistent effort over the long periods of time. You have to change your culture. You say, this is the way we do business. And with high turnover rates, I mean, we're all experiencing it. You get key players and they turn over. Can you keep that enthusiasm for these initiatives, for these programs, right? So it's also making sure that the key players are at the table. You know, we partnered with the Arizona Coalition for Military Families, and we've seen some success with the Skill Bridge program. Love the program. Is it a high volume program for us yet? No, we've placed 3 people this year, but that's a victory for us. We want to double that next year, or whatever we want to do. We want to start leveraging those opportunities, like the program you talked about, Hiring Heroes. I know a little bit about it, but why aren't we engaging that program, right? That type of thing. So tons of lessons learned. I could speak forever on it.
Thank you, George.
But I think the best thing is that warm handshake, and let that veteran know that they've got a connection within an organization that they can call. And then they have to compete for it. We're not going to give you a job. You have to come and compete and be the candidate, right? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great advice. Sintra, what is Westmark doing in the West Valley to really engage the veteran community to meet the workforce demand in that location?
Westmark has been working with Luke Air Force Base to identify the specific industries, again, that I mentioned earlier, to identify the talent that we have and then to attract them into these industries. I described the data, and I think you mentioned it, George. There's a lot of data out there, but it's kind of discombobulated, quite frankly. So I refer to the data that Luke has as the black box of information, right? And I think they will agree with that too. You know, because they have different pieces. They have a lot of information, but they don't have it in one collective area. So what we've been doing over the last several years is marketing just an aggregate number. Over 500 military separate from Luke Air Force Base in these specific areas, and we want to retain them in the community. So pushing that message out to let folks know that that these people are here. And then we do have, you know, different spreadsheets and so on. So Kevin Duncombe just started with us in the last, I think, 4 months, 5 months. And so with Kevin's addition to the team, we now have a way of utilizing different data to get more specific and be able to share that information with companies that we were not able to do in the past. So I think that's one area. I am a member of the Luke West Valley Council that meets quarterly with the base leadership, the mayors and leadership from different cities in the West Valley, and we talk about the issues that are important. It's always encroachment and flight noise and things like that, base operations, but more and more and more we're talking about workforce because that is really key. The interesting thing is, the base is trying to retain their own talent. And we're like, okay, yeah, rock on. Everybody's trying to retain their own talent. But the minute they leave, we want them. We want them in the community. And I'm going to transition a little bit. We talked quite a bit about military spouses. But I want to share a little bit of my personal story. I actually moved here because of Luke Air Force Base. My ex-husband was in the Air Force and we moved to this area, and we moved in July, right? So every military person, family PCS is in the summertime and it's miserable and you just want to do your 3 years and leave. But hiring military spouses was so important, and it was mentioned that you hire a military spouse, you might actually get the member to stay in the area. And that's exactly what happened in my case. Is the City of Surprise hired me. They were not afraid to hire a military spouse that might be short term, which a lot of companies do think that way about military spouses. So that also lends to why the unemployment rate is so high among military spouses. Talented, educated, experienced military spouses. And so, I stayed in the area. My ex-husband retired in 2004, and we both stayed in the area. And he actually went to work for ADOT because it's a military-friendly type of organization. They relate to the nuts and bolts and the organization and things like that that the military member needs and feels comfortable in that environment. My daughter is now 28 years old, and she's working right in our same area, within the same 5 miles that she grew up, and she's in healthcare. which is, you know, a career that's in demand right now. So really accepting, understanding, supporting the military personnel and their family is so important because it really, really trickles down into the community.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. So we have time for one more question for all of our panelists. So you've all given tremendous advice and insight and experiences. Let's do just one thing that you would recommend for employers out of all that you shared. What's the top thing that you would recommend for employers to be successful in hiring veterans? And Paul, I'll start with you.
I would say focus on the right fit talent. Right fit talent for your organization. There are some people who have doctor's degrees and master's degrees and 40 years of experience, but they're not the right fit talent for my company.
So once you found the right fit, I would say provide that internal support system for them. Understand that they are transitioning from wearing a uniform every single day, and sometimes they just don't know what to wear to work. So it's just as basic as that.
I would say numbers matter. Yes, we need to hire more veterans, but also consider in your metrics impact. Because you can make one awesome hire that impacts your organization for the better, and that's going to flow. They're going to bring more veterans with them. On the reverse side of that, be careful because you could have the negative impact as well, but focus on impact too. It matters.
Lindy?
I'll kind of bandwagon a little bit off of what Centra has already stated. I would say train on the soft skills, right? Don't forget about how to, you know, train a military personnel coming into your environment on the proper way to address a CEO, right? To dress at work. The number one complaint that we had gotten from veterans that we hired is that we used too many softwares to communicate, right? We had Teams, we had Google Drive, we had OneDrive, we had every single software on the planet. For someone in corporate America, you're used to that. From the military, when you're only used to using a single approved source, that's really difficult.
Go ahead, Patrick. Thank you.
I would say don't do it alone. That's my best advice, is find the partner organizations that are going to meet your needs and the needs of your community. And also realize that this is a community issue, and we want to make sure we're bringing our schools up to meet the standards of our active duty military to make sure that they want to stay. We have to bring up just the quality of life within our area to make sure that we're retaining them. Because of those 2,000 who are getting out that Abe put up, what percentage of them are actually entering the workforce in Arizona is a question that we have to ask ourselves.
Awesome. So I would offer a challenge to our employers that are either live streaming or in the room today that it's 2022 and we're still having this conversation. And so how about we come back next year and we talk about success stories at this panel from employers who took the advice from these awesome organizations and put it into practice, and we have success stories. So can you give a round of applause to our panel, please? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Soft skills. Was I clear? I just really want to say thank you and to Christine Gannon and our wonderful panelists. Please stay in place for just one moment. At this time, I'd like to bring to the podium Mr. Paul Smiley for a quick announcement. So bear with us. Great news.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a veteran this morning who on October 14th of 2022 made Arizona history. Our illustrious MC, Mr. Ron Williams, was inducted to the Arizona Veterans Hall of Fame Society class of 2022. And you can read about Ron's post-military accomplishment, what he's done here in the state of Arizona for Arizona Foundation. So Ron, congratulations, well deserved. Also at this time, I'd like to acknowledge and recognize two Arizona veterans who epitomize what I call the warfighting spirit, go on above and beyond the call of duty, not only for veterans, but also for the veterans and their families here in Arizona. The first recipient of the 2022 Arizona Veterans Champion and Advocacy Award has the stamina of the Energizer Bunny. I mean, he travels all over the state, from Fort Huachuca to Yuma to Prescott, to the Grand Canyon if he has to. And I think, as I heard, he's about to wear out his third government vehicle during this time here. When you meet this individual, you cannot recognize that he is actually on fire for Arizona. He's on fire for Arizona veteran-owned small businesses. And immediately following this event, he has another event downtown he's sponsoring. It is my pleasure to recognize the 2022 Arizona Veterans Champion Advocacy Award, Mr. Jim Pipper from the SBA. Come on up, Jim. Come on up. Thank you. That's a nice piece of hardware, my friend. All right. There you go.
It's hard to surprise me. I consider myself a hands-on guy. Thank you for the wonderful comments. It's true, I'm on my third government vehicle. We have a big state. And when I talk to Washington, they always get baffled when they say, well, just get in the car and go down to Sierra Vista. Okay. But working with people like the panel, my friend Paul Smiley, the ladies that are sitting at the table that I was sitting at, and our staff at the Arizona District Office of SBA, we mean business. We try to help in any way we can. We certainly focus on helping business owners like Paul and others, and also those veterans that are getting out that participate in one of our marquee programs, our Boots to Business programs. And they follow up their careers with owning a business, kind of like Paul Smiley did. I don't know how long I have, but I would always like to add how Paul and I met. I was doing a job fair when job fairs were very popular. The job market was very soft. This is a while ago. And I was out at ASU West and running a table. And Mr. Smiley came up to my table and he asked me, "Are you hiring?" And I said, "No, we're not hiring." And he said, "Well, what are you doing at a job fair?" And I said, "Well, let me tell you what I'm doing." And the rest of the story is here today. Thank you. Okay.
And Jim is a Vietnam veteran, flight line mechanic on the Air Force. All right, our second recipient of the 2022 Arizona Veteran Championship Award will definitely be surprised. Here's a man who refuses to take no for an answer. He's equally impressive in everything he does, and he operates in an environment that most of us don't get a chance to operate in, the back rooms of corporate America. He's the guy when you says, "Well, I can't do that," he goes, "Well, we'll see about that." And he does a great job. He's an Army veteran of Desert Storm era like myself. He's a big man with a big heart. Our second recipient is Mr. Alan A.P. Powell. Hey. I know you're surprised. All right, buddy.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, AP. Great.
All right. Yeah, both of these gentlemen, we had to make sure we did our best to make sure that they didn't know anything about that. It was Paul's idea, and we told him on the board, we said, yes, it's a great idea. Give them their flowers while they're here and doing a great work. So thank you for that. Thank you again, Paul, and congratulations to our honorees. Well deserved. Now, I'll be remiss if I didn't mention two of our former board members that are here with us today, Heath McCarter and Aaron Bear. They're here with us today. Just want to thank, they are not on the board anymore, but they have never left us as advisors and supporters. So we appreciate all that they do. Now, we're going to bring up the big guy real quick, and then he's going to bring up a post commander for some final comments. Give you a little bit more about Alan A.P. Powell, who Paul just recognized and we recognize. It's my distinct pleasure to bring to the podium an Arizona visionary, businessman, humanitarian, and military veteran. Alan A.P. Powell served in the United States Army during the Gulf War under Operation Desert Storm. He is chairman and CEO of AP and Associates and Strategic Partners. AP has been recognized for its community service and giving back to the Arizona community with the Corporate Choice Award from the Black Chamber of Arizona, the Arizona Dr. Martin Luther King Living the Dream Award, the Whitney M. Young Jr. Award from the Greater Phoenix Urban League, the Edward M. Kennedy Community Service Award from the American Association of Access, Equity, and Diversity, the ABC 15 Salutes Arizona Veterans Award, the Most Influential Man in the Valley Award. He was the Arizona Grand Marshal for the 21st Annual Phoenix Veterans Day Parade and received the John S. McCain Inspirational Leadership Maverick Award and recognized here today. So please join me in welcoming Alan A.P. Powell.
I just want to say thank you for everybody coming today. I know you could be a lot of places. It's really important to me when we do these veteran hiring resource groups and put everything together, because when I got out of the military in 1991, I applied to be a firefighter and a police officer. And back then there was no such thing as I guess called the internet. I'm telling my age. So guy told me, he says, go over there and get on the screen and see if we can find you a job, come back. And they wasn't hiring. So long story short, I always kept it in the back of my mind. Even in my Hollywood days and the days of the entertainment business, I always wondered if I ever got a chance to give back to the next veteran that came behind me, what it meant. You know, it's a different world now with the veterans. They're a lot more knowledgeable. They have a lot more things at access to things that we didn't have. I call it, like, I wasn't in Vietnam or anything like that, but it's more or less innovative now to be a soldier because the world is so innovative. So I applaud people like Paul, who put a company here in Arizona to help veterans excel, to keep up with the times. So, you know, Paul never says a lot about himself, but he's been a great inspiration to the state of Arizona to have a leader like him to give back and to hire. And even our post commander, I let him come up and say a few words. Jarvis, he did 25 years in the Air Force. I was listening to some of the stories, and Jarvis, you know, security clearance and pretty much everything. So Jarvis, a Mississippi guy, you know, and I want him to come up and tell him how important it is for what you all do today for people like himself that we're able to use these tools to excel. Come up, Jarvis.
All right, we're going to welcome Post Commander Jarvis Reddick.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Again, I appreciate it. I'm a 25-year Air Force veteran, retiree. And the information I heard here today, actually, before I get into that, I was actually employed by Mr. Smiley for 5 years. He had our contract at the base. I've been working in defense contracting for 18 years now. And it's one of those transitions where I went from being in the Air Force, going right into the same job I did when I got out. So that was one of those good transitions, because if I hadn't had that type of, I guess, transition, I probably would have left the state. So again, I heard all this good information here about how to retain people and at least keep all that talent in the state. And that's good. But my main thing is, how do we get this information? You all just said, because there's a ton of information. How do we get that to the people in uniform? Because I know someone mentioned that. So now, me being the commander of American Legion Post 65, that's one of our pillars. That's part of one of our pillars, veteran affairs and rehabilitation. That's very important to us, veterans education and employment. So now I'm going to take it upon myself to try to actually transition that myself to take this information and get it to the blue suits, the way we call them blue suits Air Force. We're trying to get that to the transition assistance program, because that's a wealth of information you all said today. I relate to everything you all said. I went through everything you all said. So, but how do we get the younger people who are getting out and retirees that information so they'll know? Because it is a scary feeling being in the military for 25 years. You get out, like I said, you know what you're wearing every day. You know what time you need to be at work and so forth and so forth. But to get out into the corporate world, all those things are good. Skill bridge. because I still work with the military alongside with them right now, and I hear all this stuff and the Skill Bridge program and all the other things, and those are things that are really working, and they're really taking advantage of it. And again, I appreciate all the employers that come out and have great and trying to assist the veterans. They're very appreciative. And thank you, Alan, AP Powell, and Arizona Foundation, and everyone here today. Thank you.
I just want to close out in saying that, I always hear people talk about, I can't find a job, I'm a veteran. I'm like, say, where are you looking at? Because, I can see if you was in a different state, they're hiring everywhere. You must just don't want to work. Because, you know what I'm saying? Because, I don't know how I'm from Kentucky. They have none of this. I'm just going to be straight up. So Arizona is really leading, with 5 military bases, over 800,000 veterans. One of the things we applaud ourselves on, Aaron kind of led this, but we actually did the first Beyond the Uniform Consumer Report for 20 million veterans to show the spend and the economic impact for veterans in this country. And, Paul was pushing some legislation at one time and some other stuff, but veterans are it's not just a word. I heard people always, thanks for your service. So I always, when I see somebody and they say that to me, and I always tease them, my buddy, I say, you do know, like, when you was at home eating your steak and potatoes watching the game, you know where I was at, don't you, in 1991. So just want to make sure I say that. God bless everybody here. God continue to bless the United States of America.
Oh my goodness. They just keeping it real this morning. I'll tell you, this post has been a wonderful asset for this community. I know that AP and Jarvis, the commander here, they've done some great things. They led the largest COVID activity in the state, the largest backpack giveaway in the state, just so many things. Pardon me? Oh, in the U.S., that's right. Absolutely. The largest COVID testing, they had the helicopters going there, and it's just an awesome thing. They're always looking at how they can serve the community. So thank you to everyone. On behalf of the Arizona Foundation, I just want to say, let's please all take care of each other. God bless you all. God bless the United States of America. And thank you for the privilege of your time. That concludes our forum. Have a good day.